So I'm going to do a small reading from Mary Daly's Beyond God the Father. In her section, the Scapegoat Syndrome. I found this really interesting in terms of what I talk about mainly on my channel. Society, as we know, has a perverse need to create the other as object of condemnation, so that those who condemn can judge themselves to be good. Eve was such a production. She represents the category into which the Christian tradition has tended to place all women who have not managed to imitate the rather puzzling model of the virgin who is also a mother. Insight into how the creation of scapegoating of bad women has served sexist society can be gleaned from the theological utterances on the subject of prostitution. Augustine wrote, "What can be called more sordid, more void of modesty, more full of shame than prostitutes, brothels, and every other evil of this kind? Yet, remove prostitutes from human affairs, and you will pollute all things with lust. Set them among honest matrons, and you will dishonor all things with disgrace and turpitude." Embellishing upon this bit of male wisdom, Thomas Aquinas remarked that prostitution in the world is like the filth in the sea or the sewer in a palace. Take away the sewer, and you will fill the palace with pollution, and likewise with the filth in the sea. Take away prostitutes from the world, and you will fill it with sodomy. Wherefore Augustine says that the earthly city has made the use of harlots a lawful immorality. The fact is that prostitutes, the greatest guardians of virtue, to use a phrase of Lecky, historian of morals, have been allotted the privilege of serving as venereal safety valves for men. Interesting questions that arise are, just whose lust would pollute all things without them, and whose virtue is being guarded? Surely not the virtue of the prostitutes, nor of the men who use them. Then seemingly it is the virtue of the honest matrons, who of course had no such venereal outlet, and whose virtue would seem to consist in being less likely to be called upon to function as sewers for men who were not their husbands, and consequently bear illegitimate children. That is, they remain the unsullied private property of their husbands, or fathers in the case of virgins. Society as structured, then, has required this wretched caste. The existence of good women, according to the male standards of being unmolested private property, has required the existence of bad women, who have been scapegoats for male sexual guilt. Even today, laws reveal the same bias. In the United States, in most states, males cannot be punished directly for patronizing a prostitute. And while in many states now there are laws that supposedly go after punters, it actually isn't really the case that they ever face any time or any consequences for their illegal actions, right? Just my little side note. Even in states where such crimes do exist, restrictive interpretations often lead to exoneration of male customers and prostitutes. In modern times, the definitions themselves of prostitution continue to reveal the double standard. It has been defined, for example, as the practice of a female in offering her body to an indiscriminate intercourse with men for money or its equivalent, as indiscriminate sexual intercourse with men for compensation, and as common lewdness of a woman for gain. The evidently one-sided view of this problem reflected in these definitions sees the act of the woman as criminal, while ignoring the responsibility of the male second party. So I find that pretty interesting because with the whole modern discussion around prostitution, what to do about the immense violence and sickness of the quote-unquote trade, the thing that is never really questioned, at least by the majority of those doing the discussion, is what about the men? Prostitution doesn't exist outside of a context where men are wanting to purchase this, like, from women. It doesn't exist out of that context. And it doesn't exist out of the context of, women being in bad situations with no recourse. So it's kind of strange that the focus, even on people who supposedly cast themselves as allies of prostituted persons is consistently on them and their behavior, as if prostitution were something that women just did of their own accord. Like we just get up one morning and decide to do it. There's a whole context that's left out of the equation, and that context is the power difference between males and females, and the fact that males are able to do this to women. And it's something that happens to women. Yeah, I don't know if I really have anything else to say. I thought it was an interesting passage. Anyway, I will speak to you all later.